stage. When you're finished your fun here, just head over near the jousting arena, and the first show is at 12, your second one is at 2, is that correct? 1:30, 3:30, 5:15. And if you'd like to take them home with you, there's discuss it with your husbands. And there are CDs available. Round of applause for Canoe. Thank you very much. I think we're just about ready to move on. Take a deep breath. We're going to time travel a little bit right now. I'm going to do my Shakespeare show. I'm not kidding. No, I'm teasing. My name is Carolyn Spedden. I'm the artistic director of the festival. Thank you all for coming out today. Never applaud before you see the show. But I'm glad you're all out here today, and I'm really thankful the weather gods were favorable. It was a very stressful last couple days watching AccuWeather, so we're very, very pleased that it's going our way. In a moment, we will be having Diane of Gabaldon out on the stage for you. She will be doing a reading of her choice, so I don't know what it is. A reading of her choice and an interview. But before that, to set the moods, we have another special guest here for all weekend long. And direct you from London. They brought the clouds, but beautiful voices. It's the Medieval Babes. So they're going to be and if you want to come on out, come on out.
Should old acquaintance be forgot, and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot, and old lang syne? For old lang syne, my Joe, for old lang syne. We'll take a cup of kindness yet for old lang syne, and surely you'll be your pine stone, and surely you'll be mine, and we'll take a wicked willie off for old lang syne. Syne, my Joe, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for old lang syne. We twa build in the barn, the morning sun till dawn, but the seas between us bravely roar. Sing old lang syne, for old lang syne, my Joe, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for old lang syne. And here's a hand, my much. We are the Medieval Babes, and we're going to be performing our full shows at 12:30, 2:30 and 4:30 today, so please do come back and see us then.
Process. Do not trample the chapel. And I think we're probably about ready if those can hear my melodious voice. I'd like to present to the stage, obviously, the lady you've been waiting for, plus Mike Field, who will be doing the interview with her. Mike is a writer and journalist, but now the person you want to see is Diana Gabaldon.
There's even a gentleman in the front row with a kilt, which is... Yes, yeah, exactly. At my younger daughter's wedding, which was held on the Isle of Bute, everyone wore kilts, all of the men, that is, and the groom's stepfather was sitting in the front row in a kilt that was slightly too short, and he was paying attention to the ceremony, and I could see the groomsmen all kind of going... So let's not have any of that. Anyway, it's lovely to see you all today, and thanks so much to Carolyn and the festival for inviting me. Well, we have, a relatively compressed schedule here today, but I thought I would like to read you just something fairly short to begin with, and then we'll do a little Q&A, and with luck, we'll answer some of the most burning questions you might have. Let's see, and no, I did not bring Sam Hewen with me. He is on the Isle of Islay drinking Lafrogue even as we speak. We'll hope he comes back in the same condition he left. Anyway, he's a Scot, yes. Anyway, this little piece I'm going to read you today is from Book 9, the one that I'm working on now. I think that probably took care of one question that we would have to ask. Yes, there is another book. No, it's not finished. And no, I don't know when it will be finished. It takes a while, It takes longer if I come and do stuff like this when I'm supposed to be working. But anyway. Yeah, all the people who are listening to me say, yeah, this is fine. It's the people who are saying, well, why aren't you here? No problem with it. Yeah, maybe not. Anyway, the book does not have a title yet. It's just Book 9. And when I read excerpts from what I'm working on, or when I post them, I try to avoid spoilers. So, there's nothing real dramatic happening in this, and it's a short piece, but you will get to see Jamie and Claire again. Okay. Sunset came sooner as the fall deepened, and the nights grew longer. We had begun to fall into the winter pattern of sleeping for a few hours, waking to talk in the dark, perhaps to make love, perhaps to light a candle and have a bite to eat, maybe write letters or read for an hour, before lying down again for second sleep, as it was called. I heard a rustling of bedclothes as I sidled into the room, balancing dishes and bottles like a waiter at Claridge's. "Pie," said Jamie's voice, raspy from sleep but completely alert. "Is it apple pie I smell?" "I do believe you were a bumblebee in a previous life," I remarked, gingerly decanting my burden onto the upturned crate that presently served as bedside table, writing desk, and clothes chest. Who else could be roused out of a sound sleep merely by the smell of sugar? "Is there a cream?" he asked, swinging his feet out of bed, sitting up, sniffing audibly. "It wasn't the smell that roused me, Sassenach. You sounded like a troop of tinkers coming upstairs, clanking and cursing." "Cursing, forsooth," I said, handing him the cream jug. I was muttering menaces under my breath to encourage the bloody dishes not to tip over and spill things down my front. He squinted at me. The room was nearly dark, lit only by the glow of embers in the smored hearth, and I could see his own face only dimly, a darker oval floating over the white blur of his nightshirt. "Did it work?" "Certainly. You just have to know what to say to them." There was not only a quarter of an apple pie and cream to go on it, but a heel of sharp cheese, cold potato pancakes, salt in a twist of paper, and a dish containing the last of the pickled herrings he'd brought from Salem 2 weeks ago, and a jug of milk, and one of small beer, and 2 cups, a knife for the cheese, and a pair of spoons, and an old dishcloth in case of spills. I sat down on the bed beside him and spread this tidily over my knees before picking up my own spoon. "Shall I poke up the fire?" I asked. It was a bit chilly in the room, but Jamie was radiating a sleepy warmth, and I liked the irregular glimmer from the smored hearth. It gave me a pleasantly dreamlike feeling, a sense of midnight secrecy. "No, on my account, Sassenach. I'll likely be asleep again directly I've finished my bitty supper." He gave a sudden huge involuntary yawn, then shook his head as though driving off an imminent threat of sleep. "Do you know a General Lincoln?" I asked. "Benjamin, I think his first name is." He paused, a bite of cheese halfway to his mouth, and blinked once or twice. "I wouldn't say he's a personal friend, but I've heard the name. He's commander of the Southern Army." He ate the cheese slowly, swallowed, and added, "Why?" "Denzel Hunter told me that the general suffers from narcolepsy. Your yawning just reminded me of it." He shot me a mildly suspicious look and reached for a pickled herring. "Do I want to know what that is?" "Probably not, but on the off chance that you ever meet General Lincoln, it may be helpful to know. It's a rather fascinating condition wherein the patient falls quite suddenly asleep, no matter what he's doing." That interested him. He ate the bit of herring, but didn't reach for another. "No matter what? Even if he should be eating? Or in battle? That might be just a wee bit awkward, eh?" That appeared to be the possibility that was occupying Denny's mind, yes. He yawned again suddenly. "I think I've got it," Sassenach. I wasn't surprised. He'd left at dawn, going after a hog that had been making repeated nightly efforts to root up my garden fence and devour the last of the neeps and yams. He'd tracked the beast for more than 2 miles before finding and killing it, and had then dragged it back single-handed. Even Grellocked, the thing weighed more than I did, but there were wolves about, and he'd been unwilling to leave it long enough to come home and fetch help. He and the hog had finally arrived, dead tired and dead, respectively, just after nightfall. I'd been of 2 minds about waking him, but he'd been too tired to eat much supper. And then again, it was apple pie. We finished the meal in a companionable silence, and after rinsing his mouth with water and spitting out the window, Jamie came back to bed like a heavy-eyed homing pigeon. Narcolepsy. What's the cure? Well, sleeping, basically. Temporary, but it helps. Oh, good. He put the empty pipe light on the crate and lay down. Good night, Ian. I think I'll work for a bit in the surgery, I said, drawing the quilts up under his chin. His eyes were already half shut. I'll be up in an hour or so. Don't hurry yourself on my account, Sassenach. He snaked an arm out from under the covers and drew me down, giving me a sweet, pie-scented kiss with undertones of herring. I will not be much good to you in bed for another fortnight or so. Not a promise, is it? I kissed him gently back. I'll circle the date on my calendar.
That lovely table was made specially for this event by the Wood Butchery here at the festival. And Diane, I don't know if you saw the front of it, but you'll see it in the chapel for signing. It's the logo. I believe it's going to be in your new book. I heard. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you and welcome once again. And another round of applause for Diana. Thank you, Diana. I think we're very intrigued to see what happens in book number 9. I'm going to start actually with a question that has everyone on edge. And what can you tell us about season 2 of the TV series?
What can I tell you about season 2? Well, they are filming it at present in Scotland for the most part. Though they've just come back from Prague. They had to go and do 2 weeks signing there or filming there, because 18th century Paris, which should be the setting, does not look anything like 20th century Paris, unfortunately. Whereas modern Prague still looks a great deal like 18th century Paris. So they went and did all of the Versailles stuff in Prague. However, they've all now come back, so I'm looking forward to resuming our Scottish filming and so forth. The first part of the season is, as those of you who've read the book know, set in France. So even though they filmed it in Scotland, it is technically in France, you know, the interiors and all that. But now we're moving into the second half of the season where we are actually outdoors in Scotland again. So that's very exciting. Let's see, I can also tell you that I am writing one of the scripts for this season. And it's been a lot of fun so far. You know, I know George Martin quite well. We have breakfast whenever I'm in Santa Fe together. And I told him I was going to write a script, and he said, "Oh, you're losing your virginity then." I said, "Yes."
And he would know.
He would know. And I said, "Yes, I couldn't choose a better guy than Ron Moore to do it with." But and George said, "Well, you're about to learn the great secret of script writing." And I said, "Oh, and what's that, George?" He says, "That is so much easier than writing a novel." It is different, but it's a lot of fun. So I am writing the 11th episode. There will be 13 entire in this season, and this will be the second from the last. So I've written it. Ron has given me notes on it. I've rewritten it accordingly, and we'll see what happens next.
Good, wonderful. Thank you. I know we all look forward to that. We're going to start actually with a little audience participation. I have a hand up already. No, I'm not going to call you down on stage. Diana is not going to read your fortune. What I would like to know, by a show of hands, please, a show of hands, how many of you have been to the Maryland Renaissance Festival before? How many of you are... Okay, these are the grizzled veterans. Okay. Now, by a show of hands, how many of you have never been here before? Please, get those hands up, all right? Grizzled veterans, look around. Here are your new friends, okay? When they're done, you show them around, tell them what they have to see beyond Diana Gabaldon. All right, a second set of questions. This interests us both here. Again, by a show of hands, how many of you came to the Outlander series by reading the books first? I said we have a very highly literate and intelligent crowd in Maryland. And thank you for me. Now not to offend you, how many of you, like me, turned on the television and were gobsmacked, and that's how you came across it? That's me. Okay, fewer. We're the. Okay, that's good. That's very helpful. Diana, describe to us your ideal writing day. What time, what place, how long? What do you accomplish?
Well, that kind of flexes as life changes and so forth. When I first began to write Outlander for practice, I had 2 full-time jobs and 3 children under the age of 6. So, I was writing in the middle of the night and in the midst of everything else. And as the kids got older and more on their own, I was able to develop more of a schedule. And when I sold the first book, they were reckless enough to give me a 3-book contract. And so I resigned at that point from the university. I was a biologist in my previous life. I have a PhD in quantitative behavioral ecology. Yeah, that's just animal behavior with a lot of statistics. Don't worry about it. Anyway, but I had known from an early age that I was a novelist. I just didn't know how. And so I said, well, you better write a book and find out. So that's what I did. Anyway, writing day. What it is mostly, back when the children were little, my husband's a lark. He gets up at dawn, and I don't. I work, I honestly do work from midnight to 4 a.m. That's my prime time. So people are always looking at my Facebook posts and saying, my God, why are you up so late? And it's like, well, I'm not. I have been asleep, and I'm going back to sleep, but right now I'm working. And we just divided up the day according to our biorhythms. He would get the kids up, feed them breakfast, make their lunches, and then he'd get me up in time to help take them to their 3 different schools. And I was the night shift. He likes to go to bed around 9 or 9:30. And so I would tuck him in and then go lie down on the sofa with the book and the dogs. And, if the kids were out at a prom or on a date or needed help with their homework, that was me. So he could sleep with a clear conscience. And so we just kept doing that. The kids are now, 33, 31, and 29. But we still have the same rhythm. And so after I tuck him in, I'll lie down. But since no one needs me anymore, I just fall asleep in 10 or 15 minutes. And I'll just wake up naturally around midnight. The dogs get a bone, I get a Diet Coke, and we go upstairs and work till 4. And then I come down and slip back in bed. So we actually share the same bed for about an hour and a half every night. It's worth having. And then I get up again, usually around 8:30, and stagger around, bumping into walls and getting another Diet Coke. And make it up to my office and do my exercise in the morning. Make it up to my office, usually around 10. I'll do the quick email scan, and then I'll take the dogs out for a morning walk, come back, and with luck, I'll get maybe half an hour to an hour, actually working. Either work these days includes an awful lot of PR and interviews and stuff. I call the mail the daily rash, because it usually includes 6 to a dozen emails from people who have a legitimate call on my time. Publicists, other scriptwriters, the publishers, the editors, the PR agencies for both these, my agents, and so forth. And almost all of them are saying, can you drop everything else and write this for us, like right now? Or, look at these proofs for the official Outlander coloring book, and don't get me started on that one. Yeah, anyway, there's a lot of this kind of nuisance, so often that's what happens before lunch rather than any actual writing. Anyway, my husband comes home, we go and have lunch. After lunch, then I will actually write a little bit, no matter what else is going on, I'll push it aside and write. And this is what you have to do if you're going to be a writer, is you have to decide you're actually going to write. Don't let anything else get in your way. But around mid-afternoon, I'll go out and do the household errands, take the dog to the vet, go and do the dry cleaning, grocery shop. Before supper, my husband and I usually have a little cocktail hour just to decompress from the day and just sit and chat. And then I'll make dinner and might watch a little TV afterward. He watches true crime shows and I read. And then I'll tuck him in and away we go. And that's sort of an ideal day when I'm at home.
I'm breathless. I'm worn out. So, something you said just a little bit ago, George Martin said, well, welcome to script writing, it's easier. So I'm going to turn the last question slightly on its head. Are there frustrations or problems or impediments to doing what you do, to being a successful novelist, that have made you or occasionally make you say, "That's it. I'm going to be a professor again. I'm throwing it all in. I'm giving it up."
No, I knew from the age of 8 that I was supposed to be a novelist, and I was right about that. Yeah, so it's very good. No, there's nothing about the writing, the research, the actual process of making stories and books that bothers me in the slightest. Which is not to say it's easy. It's hard work. Some days it flows, and some days it's like pushing rocks uphill with your nose. But this is just how it works. And I would not care to do anything else. The problem is, and it's a double-edged sword. You would like your books to be popular. You write them so people will read them. You hope they enjoy them, and when they do, it's very gratifying indeed. But yes, you look around, you'll notice that there are an awful lot of you. There's only one of me. And there's what you might call an increasing demand for my services. And this is the sort of stuff that is not writing, though it's definitely part of the career of being a novelist. And that stuff gets in your way. I love to come and do this kind of stuff. I love to talk to people and you read to them and just sort of share the experience and all that. The process of getting here to do that for you is something else. Basically, it took all of my time yesterday. I got up at 4:30 in order to catch a 5:30 flight, and got here. I had a free evening, so I had dinner with friends, so it was better than it usually is. But it was a long day, and tonight I'm hanging out with my sister who lives here. This is actually why I'm in this neck of the woods. It's because my sister lives here. And then tomorrow we'll do the awards ceremony that is the excuse for my being here, other than my sister. And then I'll fly home on Monday. So, basically I've lost 4 days of work to do this. And it just, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, remember that when people start saying, why isn't the next book out yet? It's all your fault.
Is this what George Martin says?
No, George actually enjoys George now travels by private jet, so his problems are not quite as exacerbated by the nuisances of the TSA and that sort of stuff. Yeah, no, I think George, I can't speak for George. He writes in his own way, but he was a television writer for a long time before he began writing novels, and so that's a natural, easy form, relatively easy form for him.
Yeah. So let's think about the books. I'm delighted that so many of you here came to the books through a personal one-on-one imaginative relationship with the author, that you were sitting somewhere, you're reading the book, and you're connecting to it. And I want to ask a couple questions that have to do with what's the background, how did these things evolve? One that occurs to me is that you grew up in a political family. Your father was an Arizona state senator for 16 years. The books are full of politics. It's a very political time. How was there an overt sort of, I'm going to use something that is part of me, or is it just there in the background? What's your relationship between your growing up in a political family and this incredible period of world history and world politics?
I hate politics. I would never ever be a politician.
It seems to be a popular feeling.
Yeah. No, you need a very specific personality type to be effective as that. And my dad had it, but it's not one that I share. What I use in my books is a combination of myself and my research. I do write historical fiction, and the historical aspects of the books are as accurate as history is. And that's a big if, I should tell you. I mean, just speaking generally, you're a journalist, so you would appreciate this. I've been interviewed over and over and over and over and over during the last 25 years, literally thousands of times. And people do generally tend to ask the same questions, for obvious reasons. But, how did you come to write these books? Are you Scottish? Why are they set in Scotland? And so forth. You get those every time. And consequently, I've evolved sort of just accidentally a sort of shtick for answering them. And so anyone who asks me that question is going to get exactly the same answer, word for word, gesture for gesture, as anyone else who asked me that. And consequently, I know exactly what I told them. What emerges on the page as what I told them is seldom what I actually did tell them. And there's reasons for that: inattention, lack of space. They have to compress what I say to fit, 3 inches of column space or whatever they have. And this introduces inaccuracies and so forth. Anyway, just out of curiosity, once I went back through the files of interviews. Out of 800 interviews, 2 were completely accurate. Only 2 had no errors at all. So this will show you just how much you should trust historical accounts.
this idea of being an outsider. I mean, the book's title is Outlander, and we all know the Scottish word for being from over there. I don't want to play faux psychologist here, but you're an American. You have on your mother's side, on your father's side, Mexican descent. On your mother's side, English descent. And yet here we are with a series set in Scotland, and I'm just, the sense of being an outsider how has it evolved in your understanding of the Scots and Scotland and Scottish history?
Well, a complex question there. Just to start and clear up a minor inaccuracy, because this is one of those ones that pops up all the time on Wikipedia and so forth, is that I am of Mexican descent or Mexican American or so forth. I'm not. Yeah.
Mea culpa, Wikipedia, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. No, if I had time, I would go through there daily and clean it out, but I don't have time. So these things get perpetuated. No, I am definitely Hispanic on my dad's side, but Los Gabaldones arrived in Santa Fe, New Mexico in 1591. And we've been there ever since, yeah. Consequently, Los Gabaldones were originally citizens of Spain right up until the end of the War of Mexican Independence. At this point, they became Mexicans for 30 years until the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo made them all Americans without moving a step. So, none of my family is from Mexico, simply. Yeah. But we are definitely Hispanic, and yes, I can speak Spanish, but not very well. Anyway, on my mother's side, they're all from Yorkshire with one German branch. The German name is Schweitzer, which means the guy from Switzerland. But his grandfather was born in Ireland, so your guess is as good as mine. We call it hybrid vigor. So, consequently, from the psychological point of view, what you asked, I have always felt as though I belong just about anywhere. I feel included in most groups that I have any sort of rudimentary tie with. But to go to the deeper level, it's not important if you're a novelist. Some people, I think, do write out of their family background. They feel a strong urge to tell a particular cultural or ethnic or familial story, and that wasn't the case with me. I wanted to learn how to write a novel. And so I said, what's the easiest kind of book I could write for practice? And I said, well, for me, maybe a historical novel. I was a research professor. I knew my way around a library. I said it seems easier to look things up than to make them up. And if I turn out to have no imagination, I can steal things from the historical record, which actually works pretty well. And so I said, fine, where shall I set this book? So I was looking for time and place and thinking, American Civil War, 15th century Venice, what sounds interesting. And in this malleable frame of mind, I happened to see a really old Doctor Who rerun on public television. And this was one of the really old Patrick Troughton episodes, filmed, more than 50 years ago, in which he had picked up a young man from Scotland in 1745. And this young man was wearing his kilt. And I said, well, that's kind of fetching. I found myself still thinking about this the next day in church. And I said, well, it doesn't really matter where you set this book. The important thing is pick a point, get started. Okay, fine, Scotland, 18th century. So that's where I began, knowing nothing about Scotland or the 18th century, having no plot, no outline, and no characters. Nothing but the rather vague images conjured up by the notion of a man in a kilt. Which is, of course, a very powerful and compelling image, as either of the gentlemen sitting here can tell you. Yeah, actually, I must tell you my German kilt story. Breath of Snow and Ashes was a very lucky book for me. It opened at #1 on the bestseller lists of 4 countries, and it won me the Carina International Prize for Fiction. So I got to go to Germany to accept this. And while I was there, the publisher had me interviewed by everyone in the German press, one after another, every half hour for a week. And at the end of this, I was kind of going like that. But this one gentleman from a literary journal was, raving about the books. And he said, oh, I've read everything. Your narrative drive is tremendous. Your characters, they're so three-dimensional. Your imagery is magical. I'm going, yes, go on. And instead, he said, there's just this one thing, I wonder. Could you explain to me, what is the appeal of a man in a kilt? Well, he was a German and a man, and I looked at him for a while. I was really tired.
It's like lederhosen, but sexy.
Every man looks good in a kilt. No man looks good in lederhosen. So anyway, I just looked at him for a second, and I said, Well, I suppose it's the idea that you could be up against a wall with him in a minute. See, now you're regretting sitting in the front row.
We asked our audience member to submit some questions in advance, and I have a few that I'd like to ask you. Linda Wilkins, if you're here. Okay. Linda asks that now that the characters from the books have been portrayed so well via the Star series with such a, and she says, magnificent cast, and I know you agree, has this changed your image of the characters in your own mind, at least physically, as you work through the creative process of continuing Claire and Jamie's story?
No, it really doesn't. I don't have any problem seeing the show and the books as separate things, nor the actors and the characters, with slight exceptions. As I said once, somebody asked me that at a Television Critics Association thing. I was sitting on stage with Katrina and Sam, and I said, no, by and large not. Katrina is physically very different than Claire, and, personality-wise, show Claire is different than book Claire, because so much of book Claire is internal monologue and what she's thinking about people. And, Katrina, of course, can't do that without chronic voiceover, so it's much easier for me to separate her. And I said, Tim, he kind of flickers in and out. Yeah, sometimes he's Shooks and sometimes he's Jamie. I can't call him Sam because I have a son named Sam who is approximately the same age and the same size, and it gives me cognitive dissonance. Yeah, so I call the actor Shooks. It's a play on his Twitter handle, which is SUN and so forth, or was. Anyway, it just started as a whim one night, and I later found out that it is in fact a Gallic word, which has an ordinary meaning and it has a really rude meaning, but I'm not going to tell you what it is.
It's like the books just gets deeper and deeper. We just Gloria Horner has a question, and Gloria, forgive me, I'm going to just consolidate this a little bit. This has to do with being a science writer in your background, and just as a side note, you actually were the founding editor of Success Software Quarterly. Is that correct?
Science Software Quarterly.
Science Software Quarterly. That is good. That's another Wikipedia fact. So, and has anyone ever asked you to autograph one?
Yes, actually they have. Only once or twice, but yeah, it's hard to find those.
All right. So Gloria wants to know that she says you're a consummate storyteller, and she wonders if your skill in weaving the drama and excitement so well comes from your scientific background, where thorough research and the need to write persuasively yet clearly is the foundation that you draw from when creating such complex yet completely plausible and enchanting stories.
Mm-hmm. Yes and no. Both kinds of writing, all kinds of writing, rest on a good understanding of the nuts and bolts of, what is a sentence, what is a paragraph, how do you express a complete thought, how do you balance a sentence for maximum clarity and elegance of language and all that. That's common to anything that you're writing, and I did do quite a lot of science and popular science writing along those lines. However, when you're doing scientific writing, you are not really telling a story. You're explicating a fact and describing your methodology. And you just want to do that as clearly as you can, but entertainment is not your goal. Consequently, you're not looking for conflict, basically. That's the main difference between fiction and science fiction. What you need for a story is conflict. You also need a character, which is sadly lacking in scientific writing. But if you don't have a character, you don't have a story, is what it comes down to. So that's quite different. But I was born as a storyteller. People say, can you teach people to write like you do? I can teach them to write like I can. I can't teach them to tell stories like I do, because I don't know how.
That's so. Sort of following up on that, your books involve medicine, botany, which you, no doubt, from your educational background, had some proficiency in, but medicine, presumably, you were not expert at. Has your scientific reading now become only to support your career, or do you still sometimes read scientific journals just out of intellectual curiosity?
Oh yeah, no, I read science reports and so forth for fun as well, or out of general interest. I was going to tell you something, and that slipped my mind in the.
What science do you read? What would be a
it's just
curl
general,
up with
yes.
a book kind of? Okay, so
Yeah, no, popular science. You know, I read the Henrietta Lacks book about the evolution of the Gila line,
Yeah.
and I've read things about Krakatoa and the geology of the Earth and so forth. It's just as it comes. A good book will pop up. Right now, I'm reading Mycophilia, which is a book about mushrooms and mushroom hunters. Fascinating. Yeah, it's right up there with North American lichens. Also on my shelf. No, I will read anything, literally anything.
Karen Stevenson wonders, what has surprised you the most with she says the resurgence of your books. I suspect your books have continued to sell well, but essentially when you cross over to being not only a successful novelist, but also having a successful television series, what surprised you, if anything?
The sheer volume involved, because you really don't realize just how huge the television world is as compared to, say, the world of publishing. I mean, the books have always been successful, and of later years, very successful. They say we do regularly hit #1 on the New York Times list, as long as they don't put me next to Dan Brown. And yeah, which they did once. I will never forgive them for that. But anyway, I make a good living and so forth. We're not going to starve. But when the show came out, my first agent's son, who inherited his agency, my first agent died, which is why he's no longer my agent. But anyway, they still have the backlist in that agency. And the backlist are like the first 6 books of the main series. And so he called me, and he said, I just got in your royalties for this half year. And I said, oh, really? How are they? Because I was wondering what effect the show would have. Anyway, he told me, and I said, really? Yeah, it's a big effect.
You may not know this, but Tom Clancy was a citizen of Maryland, and he told a story once of, after publishing The Hunt for Red October, getting a check in the mail and looking at it and realizing that there was appreciable loss of wealth for every minute that it was not in an interest-bearing account. So he ran to his local bank and handed it to his teller, and he'd been an insurance salesman, and handed it to the teller, and she took it, and he said her eyes just opened at the numbers of zeros.
Who are you?
So, Christina I'm sorry, Christina.
Christina.
Thank you, Christina. Are we going back to Scotland? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. I love everything about this series and hope the books take us for a turn back to where it all started.
Oh, well, the books, yeah. I actually don't know. I think there will be part of an upcoming book in Scotland, but I don't yet know where or how. It's just a feeling that I have. But all of the books do have at least one foot in Scotland, even if we're not physically there for the most part. And you will notice that a great deal of the Scottish culture was, as it was, transferred to the New World. So we have, the gatherings and the music and things like that, and also the traditions of hospitality, which we continue to see in Fraser's Ridge, and we'll continue to see that. I think that we will also do a little more with Canada and what was going on in the Scottish side up there, because those Highlanders who did not go up the Cape Fear River and into the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee went up the coast and settled around Prince Edward Island and Cape Breton. So I think we may see part of the family. That, by the way, is where the survivors from Castle Leoch went.
Something you said to me prior to us coming out here was that you're never content to do the same thing twice, and each book is a wholly different experience. Would you, I assume many people have read all the books, but some have not, so maybe you could sort of explain what that means.
Oh, right. Well, I wrote Outlander for practice, as I say. It didn't matter what I put in it because no one was ever going to read it. Consequently, no one has ever been able to describe that book. No, my first editor said to me, these books will have to be word-of-mouth books because they're too weird to describe to anyone. Which is true. So far I have seen the books sold with evident success as literature, fiction, historical fiction, science fiction, fantasy, mystery, romance, military history, gay and lesbian fiction, and horror. No, this is true. I actually won a Quill Award for science fiction, fantasy, and horror, and I beat out Stephen King and George R.R. Martin. Thank you. Yeah, but, that being so, I wrote that book with total freedom and complete honesty because no one was ever going to see it. And I liked the feeling. I didn't think that I wanted to compress what I was doing into, more orthodox channels. I also had a 2-book contract in hand. They were going to pay me no matter what I did. And so I just continued to work in this very organic fashion. I said, I'm not interested in writing romance novels. Romance novels are all one-offs. Once the characters are together, that's it. The story's over. And I said, I'm not done with these people. I can see they have a great deal more of their lives to tell. I said, I've never seen anyone explain to me what it is that makes people stay together for 50 years. Everyone knows what it takes to bring people together. That's a very powerful human archetype. But how do you stay married for 50 years? I've never seen anyone do that. So I said, that seems like a worthy literary goal. So that's essentially what I'm doing, amongst other things.
I have another audience question. This comes from Carolyn, who introduced you earlier. But she was curious about this. She said, now, there's an obvious answer here that you will immediately allude to, but maybe you can go a little bit deeper. Do you have a minor character in the Outlander series that is your favorite to write? Do you find yourself trying to incorporate this character in books just because you enjoy him or her?
Oh, well, that would be Lord John. Yeah. No, though, if you look carefully at them, everybody has an interesting story to tell, which is why of latter years I've started writing these little novellas that kind of explore, what was happening to some of the lesser-known characters when they're not on stage. And Lord John has a number of novellas, but there are a few other people, like Roger Mackenzie's parents, and, Joan and Michael, of the space between. And I have a few more of those in mind. Right now, I am actually in the early stages of working on a novella of, I think it's going to be Hal and Minerva, Lord John's brother and his wife. So we'll see how that goes.
I guess, and I'm sorry to say that we are running out of time. This stage is very, very fully booked today, so we are going to... Yes, that's exactly. Thank you, Carolyn. If any of you are wondering how you end up in this seat getting to talk to her, I'll tell you, you sleep with the director. Carolyn is my wife. I'm going to just, let's finish. There's so many questions we'd all like to hear, but let's finish with the Desert Island Disc question. You're stuck on a desert island with one or two of your characters. Let's put your husband there as well. So, besides your immediate family, who would you like to spend time just stuck in a desert island with, having to talk to?
That would probably be Lord John again. The sex wouldn't be a problem, and he's very entertaining.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a wonderful time here with Diana Gabaldon. Please thank her. At this time, in addition to standing for Diana Gabaldon, we ask you all please rise for His Majesty the King.
Let it be known that in this, the year of our Lord, 15 and 25, you see, you're not the only one that engages in time travel, my dear. On the, let's say the 26th day of September, Mistress Diana did grace our Shire with her beauteous presence. We are most delighted to note, first of all, my German God, he forgives you for your words, my dear. Although thy adventures...
Is he wearing lederhosen or a kilt?
Although thy adventures take place in Scotland, we are most delighted to see that it was a stout English lass that saved the day. My dear, you have enthralled many with the musings of thy pen. As they say, the pen is mightier than the sword. Unless it is mine. Hans, a bit of trust on your part, my dear. For thy goodly service to this shire, and to indeed Countess Will, we, Henry, King of England, are most pleased to knight thee in the name of St. Michael. Dame Diana of Rebel Grove. 3 cheers for Dame Diana. Hip hip. Hip hip. Hip hip. And now we shall accompany, escort Dame Diana to the tent. Hans, if you would clear the way. Enjoy your festival day, dear friends. May God save you all.